"My son's tutor quit," Marcus Thorne says. The words are clipped, polished, and carry the casual authority of a man who has never had to raise his voice. He places a single sheet of paper on the gleaming mahogany desk where his 7-year-old twins, Leo and Lena, are supposed to be practicing their cursive. The paper lands with a soft, final thud. Alara, who had been quietly wiping a smudge from the glass wall overlooking the city, turns. Her movements are always economical, silent. She is a ghost in a gray uniform, a presence designed to be felt only by the absence of disorder. Marcus's lips curve into a smirk that is all strategy and no warmth. It's the same expression his photograph wears in the financial magazines, the look of a predator who has just cornered a particularly clever piece of prey. "Let's see if you can handle real-world math," he continues, his gaze flicking from Alara to the intricate grid of numbers on the page. "This is a simple loan amortization schedule. Help them solve it." The condescension is a physical force in the room, so dense it feels like it's stealing the oxygen. It's not a request. It's a test, a public performance of her inadequacy. Leo and Lena look up, their wide eyes shifting from their father's imposing frame to Alara's still one. They are young, but they are fluent in the language of their father's power plays. They know this is not about their homework. Alara steps forward. The room is a monument to Marcus's success, a sterile cathedral of chrome, leather, and glass high above the city. Everything is sharp angles and cold surfaces. Her own reflection watches her from a dozen different places, a silent woman in a simple uniform, multiplied but not magnified. She feels the weight of that uniform, the assumption stitched into its very fabric. He saw a maid, a pair of hands, a quiet, compliant shadow. He never once considered the mind that directed them. Would you endure being seen as nothing more than your role? She looks down at the paper. It is anything but simple. The document is dense, printed on heavy, cream-colored bond paper that feels more like a legal summons than a math problem. The header reads, "Accelerated Principal Repayment Simulation, Thorne Capital Junior Assessment." Below it, columns of figures are packed together, governed by paragraphs of text in a tiny, almost unreadable font. Words like variable APRA, balloon payment, and default penalty clause swim in the sea of numbers. It's a document designed to intimidate, to overwhelm, to prove a point. It's a weapon. The final payment calculation should be straightforward, if you understand the fundamentals, Marcus adds, leaning against the desk and crossing his arms. He is enjoying this. He is a man who built his empire by finding the hidden clause, the overlooked loophole, the single sentence that could invert a multi-million-dollar deal. He treats life as a series of such traps, and he is now setting one for her, in front of an audience of 2 small children. Alara feels the familiar heat of injustice prickle her skin, but her face remains a placid lake. She has learned that stillness is a form of armor. To react is to cede control, and she has so little of it to give away. "Of course, Mr. Thorne," she says. Her voice is low and steady, revealing none of the storm inside. "I will look at it with them." The twins watch her, their small faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Lena, the more intuitive of the two, reaches out and her small fingers brush against Alara's hand for a fraction of a second, a silent offering of alliance. Leo, ever his father's son, squints at the paper, trying to find the trick. "Good," Marcus says, pushing himself off the desk. "I want them to understand how money really works. The world isn't a gentle place. It's about finding the edge and exploiting it." He walks towards the door, his expensive shoes making no sound on the thick wool rug. He pauses at the threshold, turning back one last time. "Let me know what you come up with," he says, the smirk returning. "I'm interested to see your math." Then he is gone, leaving behind a profound, ringing silence. The only sound is the quiet hum of the climate control system. Alara, Lena, and Leo are left alone in the vast, silent room with the impossible problem sitting between them. Alara pulls out the chair beside Lena and sits down. She doesn't pick up the worksheet immediately. Instead, she gently straightens the stack of drawing paper the twins had been using earlier. Her fingers, calloused from years of quiet, diligent work, are precise and careful. She finally draws the worksheet towards her. Her eyes scan the dense text, moving past the intimidating numbers to the footnotes, the clauses, the carefully worded traps laid in the linguistic shadows. Her expression does not change, but inside something shifts. It is the cold, clear click of recognition. She knows this document, not this exact one, but its species. She knows the predatory soul of it. She raises her eyes and meets Lena's gaze, offering the girl a small, almost imperceptible nod. It's a promise. A storm is coming, but she will be the calm at its center. An hour passes. Lara doesn't try to solve the equation. She knows that isn't the real test. The math is a smokescreen. The true challenge is one of spirit. Instead, she returns to the twins' original lesson on calligraphy, her presence a calming balm after their father's disruptive energy. She guides Leo's hand as he forms a looping L, praising the curve, ignoring the slight ink blotch. She helps Lena choose a new nib for her fountain pen, discussing the merits of a fine point versus a broad one. She is reclaiming the space, turning it from a courtroom back into a classroom. But the worksheet sits on the edge of the desk, its presence a silent judgment. Its complex grid and dense text are a stark contrast to the twins' graceful, uncertain letters. It is a piece of their father's world, dropped into theirs like a stone into a quiet pond. Marcus returns, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He doesn't enter the room fully, just leans against the doorjamb, an observer watching a curious social experiment. He says nothing, but his gaze is heavy. Alara feels it on the back of her neck, a familiar pressure. It is the gaze of a man who believes he is the smartest person in any room, a gaze that measures and dismisses in the same instant. She is helping Leo sound out a word from his reader, benevolent. He stumbles on the syllables. Alara covers the end of the word with her finger. Just this part, she says softly. Benev. Benev, he repeats. She moves her finger. Olent. Olent, he says, more confident. Benevolent. He beams, the small victory lighting up his face. From the doorway, Marcus scoffs. It's a quiet, sharp sound like ice cracking. You're coddling him, he says. He needs to learn to dissect problems on his own. That's what the assessment is for. He gestures with his glass toward the lone worksheet. That teaches consequence. This teaches dependency. The microaggression lands, a carefully aimed dart. He isn't just criticizing her methods. He is invalidating her entire approach to care, to teaching, to nurturing. He is framing her gentleness as a weakness, a liability to his children's future. How many times had she heard a version of this? Her quietness mistaken for slowness, her patience for a lack of ambition, her care for an inability to comprehend the real world. It's a slow, steady erosion of dignity that so many endure in silence. Would you tolerate this constant questioning of your worth just because your methods are gentle? Alara doesn't turn to face him. She keeps her focus on Leo, giving him a reassuring smile. You did that perfectly, she tells him. Then and only then does she rise and turn to Mr. Thorne. Her expression is unreadable, a placid mask of professional deference. There are many ways to dissect a problem, Mr. Thorne, she says, her voice even. Sometimes you need a scalpel. Other times you just need to show someone where the seams are. His eyes narrow. He is not used to being challenged, however subtly. He sees her glance at the worksheet, then back at him. For a moment, she allows him to see a flicker of the steel behind her eyes, a hint of an intelligence he has grossly underestimated. It's a calculated risk. She is letting him know she understands the game, even if she refuses to play by his rules. He takes a slow sip from his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. The air crackles with unspoken tension. He is re-evaluating her, recategorizing her. The label Maid no longer seems to fit as neatly as it did an hour ago. But instead of curiosity, his expression hardens into suspicion. Just get them to the answer, Alara, he says, his voice now cold and stripped of its earlier amusement. Dinner is at 7. He pushes himself off the doorframe and walks away, the faint clinking of ice in his glass the only sound in his wake. Alara turns back to the desk. The worksheet seems to loom larger now, a formal declaration of war. She looks at the children, who have been watching the exchange with anxious eyes. She knows she must not only solve the problem but also protect them from the fallout of the battle their father has just started. Her hand hovers over the page, over the numbers and clauses. This is not just paper and ink. It is a test of her resolve. The afternoon light begins to fade, casting long shadows across the pristine white rug. The study, which felt expansive and bright hours ago, now feels like a cage. Alara has spent the time not on the worksheet, but on building a fortress of normalcy for the children. They finished their reading, practiced their spelling, and even had their customary snack of apple slices and cheese, all under the silent, looming threat of the unsolved problem. The worksheet remains untouched. Alara knows that Marcus is not a man who forgets. The deadline is not a suggestion. Every moment of quiet she creates for the twins is a moment she is not complying with his demand. It's a deliberate, silent act of defiance. At 6:30, Marcus's wife, Catherine, enters. She is as elegant and emotionally distant as the room's architecture. She smiles at the children, a brief practice gesture, but her eyes are full of a weary anxiety. She knows her husband's moods, his tests. "Marcus is expecting you all for dinner shortly," she says, her voice a soft murmur. She glances at the worksheet on the desk, then at Alara, a flicker of something, pity, warning, in her eyes. He's insistent on hearing the children's answer. Before Alara can respond, Marcus appears behind his wife. He is dressed for dinner now in a crisp dark shirt that makes him look even more formidable. His earlier amusement is gone, replaced by a cold impatience. He has set a challenge and it has not been met. His authority has been questioned. "Is it done?" he asks, his voice flat. He directs the question to Alara, but his eyes are on the twins, making them co-conspirators in her failure. Leo shrinks back in his chair. Lena looks at Alara, her expression pleading. Alara rises to her feet, placing herself subtly between Marcus and the children. "We are still working through the foundational concepts," she says calmly. "It's a very complex problem for 7-year-olds. Marcus lets out a short, sharp laugh. "The world is a complex place. I'm not paying for foundational concepts, I'm paying for results." He steps fully into the room, his presence sucking all the warmth from it. This is the moment of escalation. This is where the unspoken threat becomes a formal declaration. "Let me be perfectly clear," he says, his voice dangerously low. "If those children cannot walk to the dinner table at 7 o'clock and present the final payment calculation to me, I am calling Mr. Abernathy from the academy first thing in the morning. I will hire a proper financial tutor, someone with a background from Wharton or Harvard, who understands what's at stake." He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle. He looks directly at Alara, pinning her with his gaze. "And your services," he says with deliberate cruelty, "will no longer be required in this study. You will stick to your actual duties." The ultimatum lands. It is a no-way-back moment. He has drawn a line in the sand in front of his wife and children. He has tied Alara's job, her dignity, and her relationship with the twins to this single, impossible task. She cannot retreat. She cannot deflect. The trap has been sprung and the jaws are closing. What would you do next if your livelihood was threatened over a point of pride? Catherine looks horrified, whispering his name in a quiet appeal, but he ignores her. He is focused entirely on Alara, waiting for her to break. Alara feels the blood rush in her ears. The injustice is a physical thing, a bitter taste in her mouth. He hasn't just threatened her job, he has sought to humiliate her, to put her back in the box he had designed for her. He needed to prove that her quiet competence was an illusion, that she was, in the end, just the maid. She looks from his cold, unyielding face to the frightened, hopeful faces of the children who trust her. And in that moment, the fear is burned away by a cold, clarifying anger. He thinks this is about numbers. He is about to learn it is about something else entirely. 7 o'clock, she says, her voice a mere whisper, but it cuts through the tension with the sharpness of glass. "We will be there." With the clock ticking, Alara finally pulls the worksheet to the center of the desk. The children watch her, their anxiety a palpable thing in the quiet room. They expect her to grab a calculator, to start scribbling frantically, to succumb to the pressure of their father's world. She does none of those things. Instead, she takes a deep breath, her calm a small island in the churning sea of tension. She turns the worksheet towards the twins. "Forget the big numbers," she says, her voice gentle but firm. "Big numbers are just bullies. They try to scare you so you don't look at the little words hiding behind them. We're going to look at the little words." This is her arena, not the cold, hard math, but the language that shapes it. This is the first glimpse of her quiet competence, the skill that doesn't announce itself but waits patiently to be revealed. She points a slender finger not at the columns of interest calculations, but at a tiny asterisk next to the initial loan amount. "What does this little star mean?" she asks. Leo and Lena lean in, their heads almost touching. They follow the line from the asterisk down to the bottom of the page, to a paragraph of text so small it looks like a row of ants. "My eyes hurt," Leo complains. Alara smiles. "That's what they want. They want your eyes to hurt so you give up and just sign." She retrieves a magnifying glass from a desk drawer, one the twins used to look at insects in the garden, and places it over the text. The tiny words leap into focus. "You read it, Lena," Alara prompts. Lena, her voice hesitant, begins to read. Clause 7b. In the event of a single payment being received more than 60 minutes past the 500 p.m. deadline on the designated due date. She pauses, stumbling over the next phrase. Alara gently coaches her. The agreed upon fixed interest rate of 4.5% shall be rendered null and void, and a punitive variable rate, benchmarked to the prime rate plus a 12% margin, will be retroactively applied from the date of origination. The children stare at the words, their meaning opaque. Alara puts the magnifying glass down. "That's the trap," she says simply. She isn't just teaching them, she is translating the language of power for the powerless. "Let me put it another way," she says, taking a blank piece of paper and a red pen. "Imagine you agree to buy a cookie from me for $1 every Friday. But if you're just 1 minute late paying me, I get to say our deal is off. And not only do you have to pay me $10 for that week's cookie, you have to go back and pay me $9 extra for all the cookies you've already bought." Leo's eyes go wide. "But that's not fair. A deal is a deal." "Exactly," Alara says, and the word hangs in the air, full of significance. "It's not fair. The problem isn't about the math, Leo. The math is easy. The problem is about the fairness of the rules." Lena, who has been listening intently, looks at the worksheet with a new understanding. "So this isn't a math problem, is it, Alara?" "No, sweetie," Alara replies, her voice soft but with an edge of tempered steel. "It's a trap, and they've given it to us to see if we're smart enough to spot the teeth." In that moment, a small win is achieved. It's immediately undermined by the ticking clock on the wall, a reminder of the public humiliation that awaits if they fail. But for the first time, the worksheet is no longer an insurmountable monster. Alara has shown them its seams, and they are beginning to understand how to pull it apart. The revelation that the worksheet is a trap, not a test of arithmetic, transforms the energy in the room. The twins are no longer intimidated students, they are detectives on a case. The fear in their eyes is replaced by a focused indignation. Alara has not just given them a clue, she has given them a moral compass. She hands the red pen to Leo. "Find another trap," she says. "Look for any word that feels sticky, like it's trying to catch you." Leo, newly emboldened, scans the document. His finger traces a line of text, then stops. "Here," he says, pointing. "It says you have to pay an expedited processing fee every month. What does that mean?" "It means they're charging you money to take your money," Alara explains simply. Leo's face scrunches up in disgust. He takes the red pen and, with the solemnity of a judge, draws a large, angry, frowny face right next to the clause. It's a small, childish act of protest, but it's a profound gesture. He is no longer just reading the words, he is passing judgment on their intent. This is the emotional anchor of the story, the bond that reframes the conflict. It's not about a maid saving her job. It's about a protector teaching two children to recognize injustice. Lena, meanwhile, is captivated by the human element of the trap. She imagines the person signing this paper, the one who doesn't have a magnifying glass or a wise guide to show them the hidden clauses. "Alara," she asks, her voice full of a genuine, heartbreaking concern, "why would someone make a rule just to hurt people? Don't they want the person to pay them back and be happy?" The question is so simple, so pure in its logic that it cuts to the very heart of the matter. It humanizes the abstract columns of numbers. If you were there, would you step closer and listen to this child's question, or would you stay silent, like the adults who designed the trap? Alara feels a surge of protectiveness so fierce it almost takes her breath away. Marcus wants to raise sharks, but here in this room, Lena is learning to be a lighthouse. "Some people think being smart means being tricky, Lena," Alara says, choosing her words with immense care. "They think winning is all that matters, even if it means the other person has to lose." They build their bridges out of weak wood because they hope someone will fall. But the strongest people, the truly smartest people, build bridges that everyone can cross safely. She looks at the frowny face Leo has drawn, a piece of childish art that is more honest than any financial statement. She looks at Lena's troubled, empathetic eyes. They are her allies. This is no longer her fight alone. The bond between them solidifies into something powerful and resilient. The worksheet is no longer just a threat to her, it's an offense to their shared sense of fairness. It has created a moral obligation. She must not only save her own dignity, but also arm these children with the wisdom to navigate a world full of such traps. The deadline still looms, but now they will face it together. The clock on the wall reads 6:45, 15 minutes until the showdown. The twins are fully engaged, their earlier anxiety replaced by the righteous fury of the just. They have identified 3 more sticky clauses with Alara's guidance, circling them in red pen until the pristine document looks like a failed test paper. But identifying the trap isn't enough. Alara knows she cannot send these children to confront their father with a lecture on contract law. Marcus deals in power and narrative. To defeat him, she must give them a more powerful story. She pushes the worksheet aside and takes a fresh sheet of drawing paper. "We're not going to give him a number," she announces. "We're going to give him a story." She begins to sketch with a charcoal pencil. A winding path, a deep canyon, and 2 simple stick figures on one side. "This is us," she says, pointing to the figures. "And this is where we want to go, a house on the other side of the canyon." Next, she draws a bridge. It looks sturdy, but she draws one of the planks with a faint, jagged line running through it. Then she draws a large, imposing figure on the other side, holding a bag of gold. "This is the giant," she says. "He owns the bridge. He tells us we can cross, and it will only cost 1 gold coin." The twins are captivated, leaning in. "But," Alara continues, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "the giant is tricky. He has written the rules of the bridge in tiny letters on the back of a leaf. And the rules say that if you step on this one broken plank," she points to the jagged line, "you don't just fall. You owe him all the gold in your pockets forever." She shades the area under the bridge, making the canyon look dark and menacing. "The worksheet," she says, tapping the predatory loan document, "is this bridge. It pretends to help you cross, but it's built to make you fall. It's a promise that looks shiny on the outside but has a sharp, hidden edge designed to cut you." Leo and Lena understand completely. The metaphor has translated the complex, sterile language of the contract into a visceral, moral fable. "So what do?" Leo asks, his voice full of urgency. "We don't cross his bridge," Alara says. "We show him the broken plank. We tell him we would rather build our own, stronger bridge." She takes the pen and at the top of the drawing writes a title, "The Greedy Giant's Gold." She helps the twins add details. A sad face on the person who falls, a smug smile on the giant. They are not just hearing the story, they are co-authoring it. They are taking ownership of the counter-narrative. The cost of ignoring this trap is no longer just a wrong number on a page. It's the story of a fall, of being tricked, of losing everything to a greedy giant. Alara has armed them not with a calculator but with a parable. She looks at the clock, 6:55. It's time. She faces a critical choice: comply with Marcus's demand for a number and lose their dignity, or resist with a story and risk his wrath. For Alara, there is no choice at all. The door to the study opens without a knock. Marcus stands there, his presence filling the space, his face a mask of cold expectation. He sees the drawing in the center of the desk, the red-penned worksheet pushed to the side, and a look of profound disappointment crosses his face. It's the look of a man whose lowest expectations have been met. "What is this nonsense?" he scoffs, his voice laced with contempt. He walks over and picks up the drawing of the greedy giant's gold. He studies it for a moment, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "A fairy tale. I asked for a financial projection, and you give me a fairy tale." He drops the paper back onto the desk as if it's contaminated. "This is exactly what I was talking about," he says, his voice dangerously quiet. "This is coddling. This is filling their heads with sentimental garbage instead of preparing them for reality." He looks at Alara, and his eyes are like chips of ice. "The world doesn't care about your stories. It cares about the number at the bottom of the page." Alara feels the isolation of the moment keenly. Catherine is not there to mediate. It is just her, the children, and a man who is absolutely certain of his worldview. He is not a cartoon villain. His rationale is clear to him. He genuinely believes he is protecting his children by forcing this harsh lesson upon them. He cannot see that she is doing the same, just in a different language. Have you ever seen a rule used like a weapon, only to be told it was for your own good? You had a simple task, he says, his voice rising slightly. One task. And you failed. He turns his back on her, a gesture of ultimate dismissal, and addresses his children. Leo, Lena, your time is up. Alara will not be helping you with your studies anymore. We'll get you a real tutor tomorrow. The words are a punch to the gut. The finality of his tone, the way he announces it as a foregone conclusion, is designed to crush any last bit of resistance. The setback is here. The door is closing. This is the all-is-lost moment. Leo's face crumples and he looks on the verge of tears. Lena, however, lifts her chin, a spark of defiance in her eyes that is pure Alara. Alara stands her ground. She feels the familiar tremble of fear, the instinct to apologize, to smooth things over, to retreat into the safety of her prescribed role. But then she looks at the drawing, at the angry, frowny face Leo drew, and at Lena's small, determined frown. Her fear hardens into a quiet vow. He will not win. He will not teach these children that bullying is strength and that trickery is intelligence. Not on her watch. Mr. Thorne, she says, her voice steady, cutting through his tirade. We have our presentation ready. Marcus turns slowly, an eyebrow raised in disbelief. You have the number. We have the answer, Alara corrects him, a subtle but significant distinction. The children will present it to you at the dinner table, as requested. A flicker of uncertainty crosses his face, but it's quickly replaced by his usual arrogance. He thinks she is bluffing, making one last desperate play. He smiles, a cold, predatory thing. You have 1 hour, he says, repeating his earlier threat, but now it sounds less like a warning and more like a countdown to an execution. Don't be late. He walks out, leaving the scent of his expensive cologne and his cold certainty hanging in the air. The moment the door clicks shut, Leo lets out a shaky breath. I don't want to do it, he whispers, looking at the intimidating worksheet. He'll be mad. Alara kneels down, bringing herself to their eye level. The vast, luxurious room disappears and their world shrinks to the small, intimate space between the three of them. This is the threshold. This is where the plan is forged. He will be, she says, her voice honest and calm. He will be angry because we are not playing his game. We are playing ours. And our game has better rules. She gently turns the drawing of the greedy giant back towards them. You are not going there to give him a math answer. You are going there to teach him something. You are the teachers now. The shift in framing is instantaneous. The idea that they, the children, could teach their all-powerful father something is a revolutionary concept. It replaces their fear with a sense of purpose. What are we going to teach him? Lena asks, her eyes bright with a dawning sense of her own power. You're going to teach him the difference between a weak bridge and a strong one, Alara says. You're not going to be angry. You're not going to cry. You're just going to tell the story, and then you're going to ask one question. She looks from Leo to Lena, making sure she has their full attention. Lena, the story is yours. You tell it just like we practiced. Leo, the evidence is yours. When she's done, you hold up the worksheet with all our red marks and say, this is a broken bridge. Then she leans in closer. And then, Lena, you will ask the most important question. Do you remember what it is? Lena nods, her expression serious. She rehearses it in a whisper. Daddy, is it smarter to build a bridge that tricks people or to build a bridge that's strong enough for everyone to cross? Perfect, Alara says, a genuine warmth in her smile. You don't have to know the answer, you just have to ask the question. This is the entire plan. It is simple, elegant, and devastatingly effective because it doesn't meet Marcus on his field of battle, the numbers, but instead moves the conflict to a field he doesn't know how to navigate, the terrain of moral philosophy, presented by his own children. They spend the next 20 minutes rehearsing. Lena practices telling the story, her voice growing stronger with each repetition. Leo practices holding up the worksheet with a solemn, prosecutorial air. Alara acts as Marcus, asking them for the number, and they practice their calm, unified response. This isn't about memorizing lines, it's about them internalizing the principle behind the story. They are not just performing a play, They are bearing witness to a truth they have discovered themselves. This is where everything could flip. The evidence is assembled. The witnesses are prepped. The strategy is set. Finally, the grandfather clock in the hall chimes 7 times, each gong a summons. Alara stands up and smooths the front of her uniform. She looks at the twins, her 2 small soldiers, armed with a story and a question. "It's time," she says. Together they walk out of the study, leaving the magnifying glass and the red pen behind. They are walking into the proving ground. The dining room at the Thorne residence is a place of formal, silent ritual. A long, dark table polished to a mirror shine reflects the cold light of a crystal chandelier. Catherine sits at one end, a nervous tension in the set of her shoulders. Marcus sits at the other, the patriarch on his throne, a king in his court. The space between them feels miles long. Alara guides the twins to their seats, then stands by the wall, resuming her role as a silent, invisible fixture. But tonight, her invisibility is a lie. The entire room is holding its breath, waiting. Marcus finishes a sip of water and places the glass down with a resonant click. "Well," he says, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous room. "I'm waiting." "What's the final number?" This is the moment. Alara gives a tiny, almost imperceptible nod to Lena. Leo and Lena slide off their chairs. They don't speak. Instead, they walk together to the head of the table where their father sits. The unified, silent movement is itself a statement. Marcus watches them, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. "What is this? Just give me the number." Lena looks not at him but at her mother. Then, her voice clear and steady, she begins. "Once upon a time," she says, "there were 2 children who needed to cross a great canyon." Marcus starts to interrupt, but Catherine shoots him a look, a rare and potent warning that he, for once, heeds. He leans back in his chair, his arms crossed, a thundercloud of disapproval on his face. Lena tells the story of the greedy giant's gold. She speaks of the promise of a safe crossing, the hidden rules on the back of a leaf, and the single broken plank designed to make travelers fall. Her childish voice fills the silent, opulent room with a simple, devastating parable. She doesn't stumble. She doesn't rush. She speaks her truth. The narrative is so clear, so morally unambiguous that it transforms the room from a dining hall into a courtroom. Did you feel that shift? It was as if the air itself changed polarity. When she finishes, a profound silence hangs in the air. Then Leo steps forward. It is his turn. He holds up the lone worksheet, its surface now a chaotic mess of red circles and angry, frowny faces. He holds it high, like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. "This," he says, his voice trembling only slightly, "is a broken bridge." Marcus stares at the paper, at the childish graffiti that has defaced his perfect, complex trap. He looks at his son's earnest, accusing face. Finally, Lena takes a small step closer to her father, close enough that she could touch him. She looks him directly in the eye, and she asks the question. "Daddy," she says, her voice not loud, but it rings with the force of a bell. "Is it smarter to build a bridge that tricks people, or to build a bridge that's strong enough for everyone to cross?" The power dynamic in the room doesn't just shift, it shatters. The question, so simple and yet so profound, hangs in the air, unanswerable in the terms of his world. It's a checkmate. He cannot answer without condemning himself. If he says it's smarter to trick people, he reveals himself as a moral monster to his children. If he says it's smarter to build a strong bridge, he invalidates the very problem he set for them, the very ethos by which he lives. He is trapped. Outsmarted, not by a rival CEO or a high-priced lawyer, but by his own 7-year-old daughter, armed with a story by the maid he dismissed. He just stares. His mouth opens slightly, but no words come out. The arrogance, the certainty, the power, it all drains from his face, leaving him looking smaller, older, and utterly, completely stunned. The consequences are about to land. The silence that follows Lena's question is the loudest sound Alara has ever heard. It is a vacuum, pulling all the arrogance and bluster out of Marcus Thorne, leaving a stunned, hollowed-out man in its place. Catherine stares at her children, her eyes shining with a mixture of shock and dawning pride. Marcus finally breaks his paralysis. He doesn't yell. He doesn't argue. He simply deflates. He looks at the worksheet in Leo's hand, then at Lena's unwavering gaze, and finally his eyes find Alara, who is still standing silently against the wall. In his eyes, she sees the wreckage of his certainty. He, a master of complex systems, has been dismantled by a simple story. He clears his throat. "Leave the table," he says to the twins, his voice raspy. It's not a command, but a dismissal born of defeat. "Go play." Leo and Lena look to Alara for confirmation. She gives them a reassuring nod. They turn and walk out of the room, their small shoulders squared with the gravity of what they have just accomplished. Now only the three adults remain. Catherine is the first to speak. "Marcus," she says softly, "what they said." "I know," he cuts her off, holding up a hand. He looks exhausted. He turns his full attention to Alara. The power, the mockery, the condescension, it is all gone. He is looking at her, truly seeing her for the first time. The fallout is not explosive. It is a quiet, internal collapse. This is the moment for justice, but Alara knows that the kind of justice that lasts is not about punishment or revenge. It's about rebuilding. What does real justice look like here? It isn't about her getting an apology or a raise. It's about ensuring the lesson sticks. Later that evening, after the house has settled into its nighttime quiet, Marcus finds her in the study. She is not cleaning. She is sitting at the desk, reading a book of poetry. He doesn't apologize. Men like Marcus Thorne don't know how. Instead, he asks a question. It is the first question he has ever asked her to which he does not already believe he knows the answer. "What," he asks, his voice low and humbled, "should a fair problem look like?" This is her opening. This is the choice of soft justice. She could ask for anything, a raise, a new title, an apology, but she asks for something far more valuable. "It shouldn't be a problem at all," she replies, closing her book but keeping her finger in place. "It should be a project." He looks at her, confused. "Don't give them a trap to dismantle," she explains, her voice calm and clear. "Give them a community to build. Ask them to design a loan for a small business that helps both the lender and the borrower succeed. Ask them to create rules for a playground that makes sure every child gets a turn, the big ones and the small ones. Teach them that the best deals aren't the ones where you win the most, but the ones where everyone walks away feeling respected, not just the one who holds the pen." She is not asking him to change his personality. She is offering him a new definition of success, a new architecture of fairness. She is giving him the blueprint for the strong bridge his daughter asked for. He stands there for a long time, weighing her proposal. He is a builder, a strategist. He understands blueprints. She has offered him a new one, not just for his children's education, but for his own soul. And in the quiet of the study, he makes a choice. The following Saturday, the grand mahogany desk in the study is cleared of all financial reports and legal documents. In their place is a large sheet of easel paper, a set of colorful markers, and 4 people: Marcus, Catherine, Leo, and Lena. Alara stands near the easel not as a servant but as a facilitator. This is the tangible outcome of Alara's soft justice. Marcus, taking her advice to heart, has convened the family's first constitutional convention. He called it that himself, a hint of his old grandiosity now repurposed for a better cause. "All right," he says, his tone serious but stripped of its usual edge. "We are here to create a new set of rules for our family. The old rules weren't clear enough." This is his version of an admission of guilt, and it is more powerful than any apology. He is acknowledging that the system was broken. He is committing, in front of his wife and children, to rewriting it. Alara hands a marker to Leo. "What should be the most important rule?" she prompts gently. Leo, who once drew a frowny face on a predatory clause, doesn't hesitate. He uncaps the red marker and in his large, clumsy 7-year-old print writes, "No hidden clause." Lena, ever the precise one, takes a purple marker and carefully corrects his spelling, changing it to hidden clauses. Rule 1. No hidden clauses. This is the systemic change. It is specific. It is named. It is created by the very people it is meant to protect. They spend the next hour defining what it means. It means no surprise chores sprung on them last minute. It means allowance terms are written down and agreed upon. It means that when Marcus and Catherine make a decision that affects the children, they must explain the why behind it, clearly and honestly. The rule's owner is the entire family. Its enforcers are the twins themselves, who are now empowered to ask, "Is that a hidden clause?" whenever they feel a rule is unfair or unclear. Marcus, to his credit, embraces it fully. He even applies it to himself. "Rule 2, he declares, taking a black marker. If I am working from home, I will put a sign on the door. A green sign means you can come in. A red sign means I need 1 hour, but the red sign cannot stay up for more than 1 hour at a time. No hidden clauses. This is how real change begins, not with a vague promise to do better, but with a specific, enforceable process that prevents repeat harm. Alara watches as they build their constitution, clause by clause. The resistance to this new way won't vanish overnight. Marcus will still be Marcus, but the path has been opened. A new, fairer operating system is being installed in the heart of the family. The predatory worksheet, which was designed to teach a lesson about ruthless power, has instead become the catalyst for a lesson in collaborative justice. A week later, a quiet rhythm has settled over the Thorne household. The family constitution, now framed, hangs on the wall in the kitchen. The tension that once crackled in the air has dissipated, replaced by a more thoughtful, deliberate calm. The change is most evident in the small moments. Alara is in the study with the twins. They are not working on math or reading. They are on the floor, building a sprawling city out of wooden blocks. Leo is designing a public park, making sure there are enough benches for everyone. Lena is building a library with a wide, accessible ramp at the entrance. They are, without prompting, practicing the principles of fair design. They are building strong bridges. Marcus enters the room. In the past, his arrival would have been a disruption, a judgment. The children would have tensed up, waiting for a critique. Now they simply look up and smile. He is holding 2 cups of tea. One is his usual black coffee. The other is a delicate porcelain cup releasing the fragrant steam of jasmine green tea, Alara's favorite, a fact he must have quietly observed. He walks over and places the cup on the small table beside where she is sitting on the rug. He doesn't make a grand gesture of it. It is a simple, quiet offering. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," she says softly. He looks at the block city his children are building, at the park with its benches and the library with its ramp. A look of complex emotion crosses his face, a mixture of pride and a quiet melancholy for the years he spent teaching them the wrong lessons. "I used to think my only job was to teach them how to win," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. He is not speaking to her as an employer to an employee, but as one adult to another. "I thought if I made them tough, they'd be safe." He watches as Lena carefully places a small, flat block on her ramp, testing its stability. "You," he says, finally looking at Alara, his eyes full of a respect that feels more meaningful than any public praise, "are teaching them how to build something worth winning." This is the moment of personal healing. It is not a dramatic apology under a spotlight. It is a quiet conversation, a shared moment of understanding. It is the sensory calm of warm tea, the gentle sound of wooden blocks, and the restoration of her dignity through a simple, profound acknowledgement. He is no longer defining her by her uniform or her duties. He is defining her by her impact, her wisdom. She takes a sip of the tea. It is warm and fragrant. In this quiet moment she reclaims herself. She is not the maid, the tutor, or the problem solver. She is Alara, and she is seen. Several weeks later, the rhythm of the Thorne household has found its new, healthier normal. The family constitution is referenced almost daily, often with a humorous solemnity by the twins, who have fully embraced their roles as co-authors of the family's legal system. The true test of the change, however, comes from the outside world. Marcus is on an important video conference call in his study. The call is with his company's board of directors, a gallery of serious, powerful faces on the large screen. He is in the middle of a complex presentation about a new ethical investment fund his company is launching. As he speaks, the door to the study opens, and Leo and Lena run in, excited to show him a new drawing they've made of their block city. In the past, this interruption would have been met with a sharp rebuke. Instead, Marcus smiles. He apologizes to his board. "Excuse me for one moment, gentlemen. I have a visit from my chief urban planners." He listens intently as the twins explain their drawing. On the screen, one of the board members, a stern-looking older man named Arthur, chuckles. "Getting them started on the family business early, Marcus." "In a way," Marcus replies, his expression serious now. "They've had some excellent guidance." Arthur leans closer to his camera, his curiosity piqued. "A new tutor. I thought you were hiring from the academy." This is a moment of truth. Marcus could give a vague answer. He could take the credit himself. Instead, he makes a different choice. "No," he says, his voice clear and unambiguous. He turns his laptop slightly so the camera can see Alara, who has followed the children in and is standing quietly by the door, ready to lead them out. That would be Miss Alara Vance, our family's chief ethicist. The recognition is stunning in its specificity and its public forum. He doesn't call her a tutor or a nanny. He doesn't say she helps out. He gives her a title that is precise, respectful, and directly linked to the competence she has demonstrated. He is not presenting her as a savior. He is acknowledging her as an expert. On the screen, the board members look surprised. Arthur raises an eyebrow, a look of grudging respect on his face. Alara simply gives a brief, dignified nod. She has not asked for this, but in this moment she accepts it. By crediting her, Marcus is not just giving her a title, he is signaling a fundamental shift in his own values to the people who matter most in his professional life. He has opened a door, not just for her, but for a new way of thinking within his own powerful sphere. Recognition, when done right, isn't about grandstanding. It's about quietly and clearly stating the truth of someone's value. The study, once a cold monument to Marcus Thorne's ambition, has been subtly transformed. It is still a place of business, but it is also now a place of learning and memory. The change is most evident on the wall behind his desk. Where a sterile, abstract painting once hung, there are now two simple, elegant black frames, hung side by side. The frame on the right holds the original loan amortization schedule. It is the very same sheet of paper that Marcus dropped on the desk weeks ago. The dense text, the intimidating numbers, and most importantly, the children's angry red circles and frowny faces are all preserved behind the glass. The frame on the left holds the Thorne family constitution. The rule, no hidden clauses, is the centerpiece, written in Leo's determined scrawl and Lena's neat correction. Below it are the other clauses they all wrote together, signed at the bottom by all 4 family members. The echo of the symbol is complete. The worksheet, once a weapon of condescension and a symbol of a predatory worldview, has been neutralized and transformed. It is no longer a trap. It is an artifact. It is lesson 1. Visitors who come into Marcus's study often ask about the strange pairing. An accounting sheet and a child's drawing, one colleague asked recently. Marcus's explanation is always the same. He points to the worksheet. "This," he says, "is a reminder of how easy it is to be clever." Then he points to the Constitution. "And this is a reminder of how much harder and more important it is to be fair." The object's meaning has changed for everyone. For the twins, it is a dragon they defeated. For Catherine, it is a turning point in her family's history. For Marcus, it is a permanent anchor for his new moral compass. And for Alara, it is the quiet, constant proof that her voice was heard. She never looks at the frames for long, but when she does, she sees the evolution of an idea. She sees the day a weapon was turned into a teaching tool and a trap was turned into a foundation. The meaning of the object has changed for you too, hasn't it? From a symbol of injustice to a symbol of earned wisdom. She straightens the frames occasionally, her fingers wiping away any trace of dust. She is still a housekeeper in title, but she is also the curator of the family's most important story. She is ready for the future, a future she helped rewrite, one quiet, steady clause at a time. The final scene is not one of high drama or public accolade. It is a quiet afternoon at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. The table, once the site of a tense showdown, is now a creative workshop. Alara sits with Leo and Lena. Spread between them are colored papers, dice, and small wooden tokens. They are not dismantling a broken system. They are building a new one from scratch. "This is for the school's charity fair," Lena explains to her mother, who has just walked in. "We're inventing a board game." Catherine looks over her daughter's shoulder at the hand-drawn board. The title of the game is written across the top, "The Strong Bridge." "How do you win?" Catherine asks. Leo looks up, his expression serious. "That's the cool part," he says. "You don't win by getting to the end first. You win when everyone gets to the end. Some of the squares say help a player who is behind, and some of the cards say work together to build a new shortcut." This is the legacy. It is not in a promotion or a plaque. It is in the intuitive, unprompted actions of these children. The lesson Alara taught them is no longer a lesson. It is a part of their moral DNA. They are no longer just identifying unfairness. They are actively engineering fairness into the systems they create. This is the tangible sign of continuity. Alara watches them, a quiet, satisfied smile on her face. She adds a suggestion. What if you had a rule that said if one player can't figure out a problem, the other players have to stop and help them before anyone can move again? Yes, the twins shout in unison, immediately grabbing a marker to add the new rule. Catherine looks at Alara, a look of profound gratitude in her eyes. The house is still a grand mansion. The family is still wealthy beyond measure, but the soul of the place has been fundamentally rewritten. The room has changed because the people in it have changed. Alara's work is not done, but it has echoed into the future. She did not raise her voice. She did not demand revenge. She simply showed two children how to tell the difference between a broken bridge and a strong one, and they in turn would spend their lives building them. Sometimes, the quietest lessons are the ones that echo the loudest, aren't they?